Bonjour, officer. We're here to help.
C'était un singe?
This video will be in 2 parts. The first will be a quick way for people to catch up on everything Overwatch related at BlizzCon, and the second part will be about putting on tinfoil hats and trying to make sense of these very strange announcements. Skip to the time on screen if you've already been thoroughly caught up. Overwatch 2 has been officially unveiled, which the developers state is a full-blown sequel. This in reality is simply not true, as everything mentioned about the project resembles something closer to an expansion. Overwatch 2 will be a player versus environment experience, where you and 3 other players will make their way through missions not unlike the Uprising and Retribution events that have already come to Overwatch in the past. These missions will, however, be much longer and more detailed, and will feature a perk-based progression system, which will allow heroes to do things which would be considered absolutely broken in the main game. Overwatch 2 will feature a story with a set list of characters, and will take place after Winston's call to action, which will finally progress the story for the first time since 2016. The expansion will also bring a host of graphical and engine improvements, as well as updates to the hero models, and an improved user interface. At this stage, we should talk about how this affects Overwatch as it is currently. The only thing that current Overwatch players won't get to access are the player versus environment missions. The developers have stated that the 2 games will eventually merge into one, and will simply have the story content locked for those who don't decide to purchase the expansion. In fact, it seems as if Overwatch as we know it currently is set to receive the biggest content update since release when Overwatch 2 launches. The 3 maps shown were Gothenburg, Monte Carlo, and Toronto, with the latter featuring a new competitive game mode called Push, which is set to have a tug-of-war style game mechanic. With this being said, the most exciting announcement was that with the release of the new expansion will also come new heroes. Details on the number of new additions were not specified at the event, but based on wording, leaks, and speculation, it appears that it could be as little as 3 and as many as 5 or more. There were only 2 that were briefly shown off at the presentation, with one being Sojourn and the other being the long-teased Echo. Sojourn is a Canadian hero who has been enhanced with cybernetics, and Echo seems to be an Omnic who has the ability to fly. There is currently no further information on what roles they will fill. There was, however, some more information provided by an editor at Game Informer, who was able to see 4 new silhouettes during a closed-doors PowerPoint presentation presented by Jeff himself. The editor described one as a male character equipped with a staff who seemed to resemble a wizard-type hero, and another as a female with short hair who seemed to be joined by a pet. The last 2 silhouettes were described to be female, but no distinctive traits could be determined. The Overwatch 2 expansion currently has no confirmed price or release date, but Daddy Jeff has cryptically told fans that they'll likely be talking about Overwatch 2 in next November's BlizzCon. This has led many to speculate that the team may be aiming for a Christmas 2020 release, but once again, nothing can be confirmed with certainty. This year also saw a new Overwatch cinematic, which sees more characters than ever before share screen time. In my own opinion, this was the best cinematic they've ever released, and the whole production is very reminiscent of the first Avengers movie, in the sense that it feels as if fans have waited years for this very satisfying new chapter in the Overwatch universe. The Overwatch World Cup was also featured during BlizzCon, pitting countries against one another to determine the most formidable nation. Viewers who don't want anything spoiled can skip ahead. The highlights of the World Cup include Denmark holding South Korea for over 4 minutes on Volskaya, Choi Ho-bin punching half a team to death as Sigma, and fucking New Zealand nearly beating Australia. Viewers who aren't entirely caught up on the recent Blizzard controversy can watch a news video I made last week, but with the grand final match coming down to China and the USA to take home gold, it's almost poetic how this clash of nations is once again left to unfold before our eyes. But America fucking cleaned up. Very sadly, for the time being, there really isn't much for an Overwatch fan to be excited about. there have been a few teasers for upcoming event cosmetics and an update that will allow players to play custom and deathmatch modes while waiting 40 minutes to play a damage character, but other than that, there isn't really anything to look forward to. The developers have only promised a single hero release between now and the launch of Overwatch 2 and made it clear that no hero reworks are on their to-do list. For a player like myself, who just enjoys the more competitive team-based aspects of Overwatch, I can't help but feel disappointed. This BlizzCon was bittersweet, in the sense that there's so much content for every type of player waiting to be dropped for when it's finally ready, but until that time, dedicated fans will have to accept that for most likely the next 12 months, there will be very little in the way of new content to appreciate and enjoy.
You said to stick together.
Don't worry.
The Overwatch 2 announcement seems strange, but let's try to make sense of it all. Activision Blizzard executives previously expressed that much of their focus going forward will be directed away from games as a service business models and more toward a sequel-based revenue stream. Jeff himself admits that even trying to merge the already existing Overwatch into the upcoming Overwatch 2 was very hard to sell to the higher-ups at Activision, and once we realize this, things start to make sense. I can only speculate, but it seems as if in an attempt to appease shareholders, Activision executives announced that because Call of Duty makes $1 billion a year from yearly releases, that they would simply order more sequels from other franchises that they own. In many ways, this makes sense for games like Diablo or Call of Duty, because those games lend themselves very well to a sequel-based business model. Overwatch, on the other hand, being a game that is constantly updated and worked upon, does not suit this kind of mold, and when an executive likely told Jeff to make Overwatch 2, he probably thought it was as fucking stupid as we do. So Jeff comes back with a proposition to make Overwatch 2 and simply expands upon the kinds of gameplay they've already been experimenting with. In the BlizzCon presentations, the developers were very adamant that this was in fact a sequel, but we all know this should have just been called Overwatch Phase 2 or something along the same vein. I can't say that I wasn't disappointed with the announcement of Overwatch 2 because it seems as if content may grind to a resounding halt until this update is finally ready to launch. But even through toxic players and dumb fucks declaring the game dead back in Season 2, there is certainly a very bright future in store for Overwatch, even if its fans will need to weather a long and dark storm to finally be rewarded with their patience.
Poor old Johnny Ray sounded sad upon the radio, moved 1,000,000 hearts in mono. Our mothers cried. They sang all